Very much for your testimony today, and we appreciate all of our witnesses for being with us today, and that will conclude the witnesses, and we'll start with our members' questioning, and I'll start with my 5 minutes. Mr. Creighton, if I could start with you. Considering the size and scope of the Equifax breach, consumers are confused and rightfully skeptical about what they should be doing to protect themselves. Could you briefly, because I have limited time, what should we tell our constituents about how the credit reporting industry is securing their sensitive data? And trust me, we're all hearing it from our constituents, from phone calls when we're back home. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, sure, and I hear it too. Obviously, this impacts us, everyone here on the panel, as much as it impacts you. What is the industry doing to protect their data? The same thing every company that has sensitive information is doing. They're monitoring their systems. They're learning from every breach that happens, not only in our industry, but across the economy. We're fighting this war on a daily basis. We're getting attacked nonstop from nation states, as one of the other witnesses was mentioning, from criminals, and from many others. What do? We monitor. We test our system. We try to do data minimization and encryption inside and while the data is in transit to make sure that if in fact somebody is in the system, the information is not usable if they're in there, and to try to keep them out of the system in the first place. Taking care of consumer sensitive personal information is the most important thing that we do. In this case, we failed, but it's still the entire industry's #1 priority.
Thank you very much. Mr. Norton, Equifax was subject to federal data security standards. Other industries are subject to federal and state security standards. However, breaches continue in all the sectors. When companies are evaluating how to protect individuals' data from cyber criminals or nation states, are there best practices to follow? And most importantly, how effective are the regulations that are out there in policing companies' cybersecurity practices today?
Well, I think it's obvious by the number of attacks we've seen every day, every week, every year that we're not doing enough. So I think that's pretty clear that the larger corporations, whether it's Equifax, Home Depot, or Target, they've all been exposed and they've all been attacked because they all are targets because they have a large amount of information on their systems. I think partnerships through places like the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Commerce are important to establish. I think real-time information needs to be exchanged a lot faster than it is right now. I think we need to almost indoctrinate some of the business partners with the federal government in terms of allowing them to get some of this sensitive information and create that culture that I don't think really exists, at a lot of C-suites right now.
Let me ask you about where you just said, okay, if you're exchanging that data in real time, that real-time data, how would you describe that and how should that be done?
Well, I think that you need, certainly somebody that's at a senior level within a CEO. So let's use states, for example. After the 9/11 attacks, a lot of governors stood up Homeland Security apparatuses at the state level, and they had Homeland Security advisors. I think you need a similar model at the CEO level, where the CEO has a cybersecurity, not just an advisor, but somebody that's at a senior level that can be in the meeting, not once a month, not every 6 months, not every quarter, but every day, and they can get briefed every day on these threats. Any company that has large amounts of personal information, like we're talking about earlier, like Equifax, or large amounts of other types of IP, for example, companies that have, high-end, valuable assets that might be for sale, again, would be something that would be attacked. So I think all these things need to be considered and need to be part of that exchange in terms of the day-to-day threat information. And if DHS or other agencies, need more funding or they need to continue to stand up, then that's an area that I think the subcommittee could definitely support that.
Well, thank you. Ms. Fortney, given your experience at the FTC and in your legal practice, what potential consequences do you see for Equifax given the regulatory environment? And again, what laws and regulations are at play in this situation?
Sorry. The first thing we need to do is find out exactly what happened, and the FTC has announced, they took the extraordinary step to announce that they were conducting what's usually a non-public investigation. We don't know exactly what's happened. The fact that there's been a security breach in general doesn't mean that there's a violation of law. From what we've read, and that's all I know is what I've read in the press, Equifax did not take appropriate measures to prevent the breach. The Fair Credit Reporting Act, if there's any credit reporting information that's involved, would come into play. There are civil penalties, and as well as the FTC's authority to prevent future violations. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley rules also require Equifax to safeguard the data on consumers that it holds, and there can be penalties there as well. I understand that there's some confusion in terms of whether a violation of the rule itself would result in penalties, but I think the FTC also has authority under other laws. In addition, the FTC has taken the position that their authority to address unfair, deceptive acts or practices can come into play when there is a serious security breach.
Thank you very much. My time has expired, and the chair recognizes the ranking member of the subcommittee, the gentlelady from Illinois.